The broadcast of the regularly scheduled Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee for today, which is August 24th. I'm Lisa Goodman. I'm the chair of the committee. As we begin, I'll note for the record that this meeting has remote participation from members of the City Council and city staff as authorized under Minnesota statute section 13D.021. Due to the declared local public health emergency. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to its website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to the open meeting law. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for our meeting today.
Councilmember Reich.
Present.
Councilmember Gordon. Councilmember Osmond.
Here.
Councilmember Ellison.
Present.
Councilmember Schrader.
Here.
Chair Goodman.
Present.
There are 5 members present.
And I'll note for the record that Councilmember Gordon did reach out to us and let us know he was unable to make the meeting today. He might be able to join by phone, but he did call in advance. I'll start with the consent agenda today, which is items 5 through 20. Item 5 is the liquor license approvals and item 6 are the renewals. Item number 7 is an AUAR, an alternative area-wide review for the Upper Harbor Terminal. Item number 8 is Hennepin County's Redevelopment Authority. This is financial assistance from their Housing Incentive Fund for a project in the city. Item number 9 is a grant application to deed for a project at Malcolm Yards. Item number 10 are Cultural District's Interior Improvements Pilot Program. These will be going to the African Economic Development Services, Lake Street Council, Northeast Chamber, and West Bank Business Association. Item number 11 are the Great Streets Facade Improvement Program grants in the total of $450,000. These will be going to the African Economic Development Services, Lake Street Council, Northeast Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, the Nokomis East Neighborhood Associations, Standish Erickson Neighborhood Association, Seward Redesign, Southwest Business Association, the Victory Neighborhood Association, Weber Camden Neighborhood Association, and the West Bank Business Association. Item 12 is a commercial property development fund loan for Split Rock Properties for a property at 3745 Minnehaha Avenue. Item 13 is a bond issuance for Stonehouse Square Apartments at 215 Broadway Avenue. Item 14 is a bond issuance for Peregrine at 2025 West River Road. This is granting approval for the county and their redevelopment authority to work on a project in that location. Item 15 is a contingency trust fund loan for 3301 Nicollet. Item 16 is acquisitions of easements for the Border Avenue Extension Project. Item 17 is a nuisance condition property waiver at 2029 Willow Avenue North. Item 18 is a right-of-way vacation for Mark Lucas on behalf of Van White Holdings at 1207 Glenwood. Item 19 is referring to staff the subject matter of seasonal outdoor permit ordinance changes. And item 20 is referring to staff the subject matter of the third-party delivery fees ordinance. Item 21 is a receive and file. This is a report on appointments made by Reg Services to the Minneapolis Animal Care and Control Board. We have also postponed item number 23. Are there any items on the consent portion of the agenda that anyone would like to pull or pull off for further discussion? I'm just looking to see if anyone is in queue to pull any items off for discussion. I don't see anyone. So with that, I will move items 5 through 20, receive and file item 21, and postpone item 23 to the September 14th meeting. With no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
Those items are approved. We'll then move on to our public hearing agenda. There are 4 public hearings this afternoon, starting with item number 1, which is the Breakfast Bar of Minnesota. Because, however, the applicant has withdrawn their application because the hearing has already been publicly noticed, I'll proceed to open the public hearing and ask the clerk if there's anyone in queue to speak to this item. And it looks like there is someone in queue, so perhaps Mr. Velasquez can explain what is happening.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. The applicant, Breakfast Bar of Minnesota, has submitted 3 different applications, 2 of which were already approved as the liquor license approvals in the consent agenda just moments ago. The 3rd item is the exterior upgrade that would allow for live general entertainment in the outdoor space. The applicant has chosen to withdraw that specific application while moving forward with the other 2 items at this time.
Okay. And I'm noting that the clerk has noted that the person who signed up to speak on item number 1 is not on the call. So I will open the public hearing on item number 1 as that is required under our notice proceedings and see if there's anyone here to speak to this issue. Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I will move to withdraw this item at staff's recommendation. Are there any comments or questions about that? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion to withdraw.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That item has been withdrawn. I thank the staff for all the work that you've done on this to get to this point where it's now withdrawn. Thank you for getting the license approved. We'll move on to item number 2, which is an interim use permit by the city with regard to a property at 2103 West Broadway. And I would happily call on Aaron Hanauer to give this report. Mr. Hanauer, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. So the city of Minneapolis is looking. We currently have a surface parking lot that's part gravel and part paved. That's shown on slide 2. If you could advance. And as you can see to the north, this site is to the north and west of the Capri Theater. And next slide, please. So the applicant's looking to establish an interim use for 5 years to allow for an 80-space temporary surface parking lot. Next slide, please. That timing of 5 years will allow for the applicant and for the city of Minneapolis to complete a new request for proposal for development of the surface parking lot. However, in the meantime, the city is looking to improve the current conditions of the surface parking lot by repaving, by striping and landscaping the perimeter of the parking lot. And staff finds that this interim use permit meets the findings needed, including not being detrimental to or injurious to the public health, safety, and comfort of those in the area, and to help reduce traffic congestion in the meantime while a new development proposal comes to fruition. Staff's recommending approval of the interim use permit with the main condition being that it shall expire by August 24th, 2026. So I'm happy to answer questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hanauer, for your report. We'll see if anyone has any questions on item number 2. Seeing none, thank you for being here. We'll open the public hearing and ask if there are any if there's anyone here to speak on this item. It does not look like anyone is online to speak on this item, so I'll just call one more time if there's any speakers on this item. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to move approval of this item.
Councilmember Ellison has moved approval of item number 2. I do want to note this is in the 5th Ward and so many good things are happening at the Capri Theater. Congratulations to you, Councilmember Ellison, and everyone on the Capri team for getting this far. It's been a long time in coming. On the motion to approve, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond,
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison,
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
The motion is then approved. We'll move on to item number 3, which is the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, often referred to as the CAPER report. I'll invite Mr. Bauer to please give his report on this item. Mr. Bauer, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Next slide, please. The 2020 CAPER is the report on the city's performance on its Community Development Block Grant, Home Funds, Emergency Solutions Grant, and HOPWA programming. Is a report made to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that's due at the end of the month. The report also covers the first year of HUD COVID-19 resources that the city has provided us in 2020. A 15-day public comment period to receive comment on the draft CAPER is necessary before submitting the report to HUD, as well as a public hearing, which is today's subject matter. The draft CAPER was made available on the city's consolidated plan website, and staff requests that as a receive and file item, that items received or comments received at this hearing or otherwise provided in written format during the comment period be included in the final report submitted to HUD on August 27th, this Friday. That stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bauer on item number 3? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing on item number 3 and ask the clerk if there are any speakers in queue on this item.
There is no one signed up to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Brock, for that note, and Mr. Bauer for your report. I'll note that there is no one in queue to speak to item number 3, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and ask Councilmember Schrader for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move this item forward for approval.
Item number 3 has been moved by Councilmember Schrader. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond,
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison,
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That item is approved. We'll move on to our last public hearing item, which is item number 4. This is the tax increment financing plan for Worth on the Woods. I will note that this public hearing will be open, but due to a noticing error, it will be continued into the biz meeting of September 14th. But I'd like to invite staff to give the presentation now, and I believe we've been joined by Emily Carr. Ms. Carr, welcome.
Oh, good afternoon, Chair Goodman, members of the committee. I'm Emily Carr, and I'm a Senior Project Coordinator in CPED. I'm before you today requesting 2 pieces of financing for the Worth on the Woods Theodore Senior Affordable Project. Worth on the Woods is a 6-story new construction project proposed in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. 2 actions today. The first involves tax increment financing, which is the subject of the public hearing. And the second is an additional Affordable Housing Trust Fund award. I'll describe the project now regarding both acts. Worth on the Woods will include 100 units of senior housing affordable at 50% AMI or below. All units are 1 or 2 bedrooms. Units will be affordable at 30% AMI or below and will include 6 units designated for individuals experiencing homelessness, and 4 units that will receive housing support from Hennepin County. All units of the project restricted. Overall site improvements include a stormwater management pond and trails and connections to the Theodore Worth Park. The Worth on the Woods Theodore is part of a multi-phase redevelopment on the 9-acre former CenturyLink site in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. Phase 1 of the redevelopment includes the senior affordable building adjacent. Phase 2 of the redevelopment is expected renovation of the existing CenturyLink office into approximately 100 to 150 market rate units. Phase 3 is planned as 60 for-sale townhomes. The market rate senior building and the other phases are not subject to the project financing before you today. The project also assists the city in achieving its goal of 35 units of affordable senior housing units in each ward by 2025. The total development costs for the project are currently estimated at approximately $28.6 million. Primary financing includes housing infrastructure bonds and 4% tax credits for Minnesota housing. It includes $377,000 in deferred developer fee, as well as equity contributions from the future project phases. The first set of actions is the tax increment financing. The developer has requested pay-as-you-go TIF assistance from the city to help pay for eligible construction costs. The Worth on the Woods TIF plan establishes a new housing TIF district. Pending City Council approval, the City of Minneapolis will issue a pay-as-you-go tax increment note in the amount of $1,717,500 to the project. The pay-as-you-go note does not obligate the city to make any payments to the note holder beyond the payment of 90% of the tax increment generated by the development. The attached Worth on the Woods tax increment financing plan provides a detailed breakdown of how the increment will be distributed and used. The Worth on the Woods tax increment financing plan was transmitted for the required 45-day review to Hennepin County, the Minneapolis School Board, the City Planning Commission, the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association, and other interested parties until 2021. No public comments were received about the plan. The TIF redevelopment contract terms require the developer to deliver 100 units of affordable senior housing within 18 months of closing, with the additional provisions outlined in the report. The developer has agreed to the city's recapture provisions. The increased property value resulting from the construction of this housing project will not be included in the city's general tax base until the TIF district is decertified, which is anticipated to occur in approximately 26 years. The city will retain 10% of the tax increment generated each year for the payment of TIF administrative costs. The last action before you today is regarding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The project was awarded an Affordable Housing Trust Fund award of $2 million in 2019, and staff is recommending an additional award in an amount not to exceed $500,000 to cover a financing gap created by increased labor and material costs. Under the trust fund guidelines, the project is eligible to receive this $500,000 on a pipeline basis without exceeding the program maximum award. If approved, the supplemental award will be added to the original award amount for a total trust fund award of $2.5 million. Staff recommends approval of an additional $500,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and $1,717,500 in tax increment financing for the Worth on the Woods Senior Housing Project. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Carr, for your presentation. I'm just wondering if the trust fund allocation can be made today or that required a noticing change as well.
Chair Goodman, my understanding is the trust fund award does not require a noticing change. It can be made today.
Okay, great. Thank you. So because of the noticing error, we're not going to be able to take up the tax increment plan today. We'll have to wait until September 14th. But I am going to open the public hearing on this item because it has been noticed in some locations, and ask the clerk if there's anyone here to speak on that issue today.
Madam Chair, there's one person who signed up but appears not to be on the line.
Okay, so we'll just call for anyone who is on the call who is here to speak to this issue. Speak up now, please. It does not appear that anyone is here for the call. So as a result of that, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to move to postpone item 4, sections 1, 2, and 2, and move forward items 3, and 4. And I certainly will rely on staff to tell me if that has not been noticed correctly, but it sounds like we can authorize the redevelopment contract as well as the additional trust fund allocation today and take up the tax increment at the next meeting. Is there any objection to that by staff?
Chair Goodman, I believe that item number 3 is associated with the TIF, and so we should postpone 1, 2, and 3 and vote on 4.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gildem. We will do just that. I'm going to move to postpone items 4, 1, 2, and 3 and move forward item 4, section 4. Are there any questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That item on the trust fund allocation has been approved and the tax increment plan will move forward to September 14th. Our last item on the agenda today is a discussion item. This is receiving and filing via a presentation the 2020 Inclusionary Zoning Annual Report. Councilmember Schrader and I got a brief look at the PowerPoint, which is really incredibly well done. And so we thought everyone would like to see it. So I'm going to turn this back over to Emily Carr so that she can give the presentation on item number 22. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman, committee members. I am Emily Carr, Senior Project Coordinator in Residential Finance. Can I get the next slide, please? Today, I'm going to give a brief overview of the inclusionary zoning policy and the results from 2020. Then I will share our new online inclusionary zoning dashboard that launched last week, the staff review of the policy, which results in 1 recommended action for the committee today, and then finally some next steps for the program. Next slide, please. The permanent inclusionary zoning policy went into effect January 1, 2020. Inclusionary zoning applies to new residential projects with 20 or more units that submitted a completed land use application after January 1, 2020. It requires that new projects provide some level of affordable housing on site or another public benefit, such as paying a fee that goes into the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund or the Minneapolis Homes program. This program is just one of our many affordable housing tools. Inclusionary zoning applies to both rental and ownership projects. There are currently 2 temporary exemptions related to ownership units and another related to small scale buildings. And I will give an update on those later in the presentation. No net loss applies to new construction projects with 100 or more units that demolish existing units that are 50 years old or older. Next slide, please. The rental inclusionary zoning requirements include both on-site compliance options as well as alternative compliance options. On-site options include providing 8% of the units on-site, 4% of the units on-site, or revenue loss offset financial assistance, which is subject to City Council approval. Alternative options include paying a cash fee, producing the required units off-site, or donating land to the city. Those last 2 options are subject to City Council approval. Next slide, please. So attached to the RCA today is the 2020 Inclusionary Zoning Annual Report, which I will give a brief overview of. Report elements include background on policy development of the permanent policy, policy requirements, which I just summarized in the previous slide, a section on projects that were issued building permits. And these are projects that have finalized their 2020 inclusionary zoning selection and submitted to the city how they intend to comply with inclusionary zoning or demonstrated an exemption and were also issued a building permit. The report also includes a summary of development projects currently in the pipeline. These are projects that have completed a land use application and have City Planning Commission approval, but they are somewhere in the permit review process and have not yet been issued a building permit. Once they are issued a building permit, their inclusionary zoning selection will be counted and finalized. The final section is a development activity summary, which just summarizes major development activity from 2015 to 2020. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. So some highlights of the outcomes in 2020. 9 projects with a total of 742 units received building permits and were subject to inclusionary zoning. 2 of the projects were market rate projects. 1 chose to provide the units on site and will be providing 18 units at 60% AMI. The other project chose the off-site option and will produce affordable housing units at an adjacent site. 2 small-scale projects with a total of 79 units were permitted in the 20 to 49 unit range, which is that small scale exemption area. And then 5 projects with a total of 306 units were permitted, but exempt because they were regulated affordable housing, such as tax credit or affordable housing projects. Trust fund projects, excuse me. I wish I had more data to report on in 2020, but with COVID and the new challenges related to materials and labor market made this process slower than staff initially anticipated. Next slide, please. So one of the things we did was work to create an online dashboard to be able to publicly share inclusionary zoning data. This dashboard is featured this week on the city's data source page, and it will serve as a resource to staff, the development community, and general public about this work. Can you please open the link and switch over to the web page? Thank you. So this is the inclusionary zoning tracker that's currently on the city's data page, web page. It's the featured dashboard. It's organized in 3 sections. The blue section, the top section, is permitted projects for both 2020 and 2021. You can see a list of these projects, the inclusionary zoning option they chose, and number of units. You can see so far that the projects that have been permitted have chosen a variety of options. You can also see some of the fees that have been collected and financial assistance given, which so far is 0 to projects. And can you scroll down to the orange, please? The next section is orange, and these are permitted projects, but they were exempt because they either fall in that small scale project exemption or they're regulated affordable housing. This is also where we track progress to the 500 unit exemption for small scale developments. You can see right now we have 202 units permitted in that project category, so we're about halfway to the 500 unit count. You can scroll further down to the purple section. These are projects that are in the development pipeline. These projects have City Planning Commission approval, but do not yet have a building permit issued. So we do not yet know how they plan to comply with inclusionary zoning. Once these projects are permitted, they will move up to either the blue or orange section, depending on how they fall. And then if you scroll all the way back up, please, there's a big blue button with a geographic summary. So the geographic summary page just shows the number of projects by ward and by neighborhood. You can also see the geographic distribution of projects permitted or in the pipeline. So the permitted projects are the blue star, and then the pipeline projects are the circles. And can you switch back, please? So the intent is that this will be updated on a semi-regular basis so that everyone has access to this data. And then can you switch back, please, to the PowerPoint? And next slide, please. Oops. The city's unified housing policy that was adopted in 2019 with inclusionary zoning also requires that CPED staff review the inclusionary zoning policy and bring any recommended updates or changes to the city council after 18 months, and again every 3 to 5 years thereafter. Staff from multiple city work units met and reviewed the full policy and outcomes to date, and we have one recommended clarification at this time. Staff recommends updating the unified housing policy to clarify the definitions between a multi-phase development and a building site for which a building permit is issued. The purpose of this change is to make clear that when there is a multi-phase development with multiple buildings, such as a planned unit development, that the inclusionary zoning policy requirements apply to each building for which the building permit is issued. A red line version of the policy and the proposed changes is attached. These proposed changes also went out for public review, and comments received are attached to the staff report as well. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to brief you on a couple of next steps. Earlier this year, the city conducted a request for proposals for an inclusionary zoning certifying entity to verify eligibility and monitor projects on an ongoing basis. A request to approve this contract, as well as updates to the inclusionary zoning fees and the ordinance, will be coming to the city council in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. Staff is also working to establish an inclusionary zoning housing opportunity interest list. This is basically an email list that will make interested people aware of new inclusionary zoning housing opportunities. Annual reports, those will be ongoing every year. And then per the policy, there will also be a full policy review every 3 to 5 years. And so that concludes my presentation for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that terrific presentation and all of the work that went into that public dashboard. I think everyone would say they think it's really great work and is very much appreciated. I'll see if anyone on the committee has any comments or questions or would like to move approval. Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to, express my thanks to staff. This was a very complex policy, and it is amazing that you kicked it off last year with all the challenges. And so I'm very proud that we have this, and I'm really proud of kind of all the work that staff has done to make this a success. And I really appreciate the transparency that we're showing folks that, when new buildings are going up, affordability is something we're dedicated to here in the city. So Madam Chair, if this discussion item needs approval, I'm happy to move it forward.
Great. Councilmember Schrader has moved to receive and file the annual report, as well as the motion adopting an amendment and restating the unified housing policy to include the clarifications as noted by staff. Are there further comments and questions on Councilmember Schrader's motion? Seeing none, I would please ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That carries and the motion is approved. We have no further business before us. So unless there is an objection, I will consider and call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time.